Luna's small figure darted through the narrow alleyway, her tattered clothes fluttering around her like the wings of a sparrow. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a golden hue over the city, but the alley remained shrouded in shadows, littered with yesterday's remnants. The aroma of stale food and dampness clung to the air, but Luna had long grown accustomed to it. Her bright, curious eyes scanned the ground, searching for anything that could fill her empty stomach. Despite the harshness of her surroundings, there was a spark of hope in her heart, a flicker that refused to be extinguished. She knelt beside a pile of discarded boxes, her fingers deftly sifting through the debris. "Come on, come on," she whispered to herself, a mantra she had developed over the years. The sound of her voice brought a small sense of comfort. Suddenly, she spotted a half-eaten sandwich, its crust slightly moldy, but still salvageable. A grin broke across her face as she retrieved it, cradling it like a treasure. "Lunch for today," she exclaimed softly, her spirit momentarily lifting. As she took a moment to inspect her find, she felt a pang of guilt. She knew there were others out there, like her, who were hungry and could use this more than she could. With a determined nod, she wrapped the sandwich in her worn scarf and tucked it safely under her arm. "Maybe I'll find someone who needs it more," she said, her voice filled with compassion. It was this kindness, this innate ability to think of others before herself, that defined Luna. She had learned early on that even in the darkest of times, a small act of kindness could brighten someone's day. As she emerged from the alley, the sun's rays painted the world in vibrant colors. The street was alive with the sounds of bustling pedestrians and honking cars, yet Luna felt like a ghost, drifting unnoticed among the living. She made her way toward the park, a place she often visited to find a moment of peace amidst the chaos of city life. Meanwhile, in a stark contrast to Luna's world, Ethan sat in his luxurious office on the top floor of a skyscraper, surrounded by polished wood and glass. The view was breathtaking, the city sprawling beneath him like a living organism. Yet, Ethan felt trapped within the confines of his own life. The weight of his recent loss bore down on him like a heavy cloak, suffocating and relentless. His wife's laughter echoed in his mind, a haunting melody that played over and over, a reminder of what he had lost. He had been a successful businessman, wealthy, powerful, respected. But now, with her absence, he was just a shell of the man he used to be. Piles of paperwork and meetings filled his days, but none of it mattered. The joy he once found in his work had evaporated, leaving behind a hollow existence. "Ethan, can you please sign these?" His assistant Rebecca interrupted his thoughts, her voice cutting through the fog of despair. He looked up, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course," he replied, taking the documents from her. "Anything else I need to handle today?" Rebecca hesitated, sensing the heaviness in his demeanor. "Just the meeting with the board at 3, she said gently, her voice laced with concern. "Is everything all right?" Ethan nodded, though the truth was far from it. "Yeah, just tired. I'll manage." As she left, the silence returned, wrapping him in its suffocating embrace. He glanced out the window, watching the people below. They moved with purpose, their lives full of promise and connection. A pang of envy struck him, sharp and painful. He wanted to feel that again, but didn't know how. The thought of attending the board meeting felt overwhelming, and he decided to leave the office instead. Stepping outside, the cool breeze hit him like a wake-up call. He wandered aimlessly through the city streets, his mind racing with thoughts of what could have been. The world around him blurred, each face a reminder of his isolation. He found himself drawn to the park, a place he used to enjoy with his wife during happier times. When he arrived, the park was filled with laughter and life, children playing, couples walking hand in hand. Yet Ethan felt more alone than ever. He sat on a bench, staring at the ground, lost in a whirlwind of memories and regret. Meanwhile, Luna had made her way to the park, her heart lightened by the prospect of sharing her sandwich. As she wandered, she noticed a man sitting alone on a bench, his face buried in his hands. There was something about him that tugged at her heartstrings. She had seen that look before, the look of someone carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. With her innate sense of compassion guiding her, she approached him cautiously. "Excuse me, sir?" she called out softly, her voice tentative yet filled with warmth. Ethan looked up, surprised to see a young girl standing before him. Her clothes were ragged, and yet her bright eyes shone with an unexpected kindness. "What do you want?" he replied, his tone more harsh than he intended. I found this sandwich and I thought you might like it," Luna said, extending the wrapped food toward him. "I saved it for later, but you look like you need it more than I do." Ethan's brow furrowed in confusion. "Why would you want to give this to me?" "Because you look sad," she replied simply, the honesty in her words cutting through the layers of his despair. "And I know what it feels like to be sad. It helps to share." A moment of silence stretched between them, the weight of her words lingering in the air. Ethan felt his defenses begin to crumble, a flicker of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Human connection. He hesitated, looking at the sandwich, then back at her. "Are you sure?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his stoic facade. Luna nodded eagerly, her smile unwavering. "I promise. It's really good, even if it's a little old." With a deep breath, Ethan accepted the sandwich, his fingers brushing against hers. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you want to share it?" Luna asked, her innocence shining through. "I can take half." Ethan chuckled lightly, the sound foreign to his own ears. No, you keep it. I'm not that hungry." "Okay, but you can at least talk to me while I eat," she insisted, her enthusiasm infectious. "What's your name?" "Ethan," he replied, feeling a warmth spreading through him that had been absent for far too long. "I'm Luna," she said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What makes you sad, Ethan?" The question hung in the air, a challenge to his guarded heart. He hesitated, unsure if he could share his pain with this innocent girl, but looking into her bright eyes, he felt a strange sense of safety. "I lost someone I loved," he admitted slowly. "I'm sorry," Luna whispered, her voice laced with genuine empathy. "I know how it feels to lose things." Her words struck a chord within him. In that moment, surrounded by the laughter of children and the vibrancy of the park, Ethan felt a flicker of hope igniting within his chest. Perhaps, just perhaps, this encounter with a small girl named Luna could be the beginning of something new, something that could bridge the chasm of loneliness that had engulfed him for so long. Ethan sat on the park bench, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. He stared vacantly at the ground, his mind a whirlpool of thoughts about the losses he had endured. The city around him buzzed with life, laughter, and moments of joy that felt utterly foreign to him. It was in this state of despair that a small voice broke through his reverie. "Excuse me, sir." Luna's voice was soft yet confident, and it drew Ethan's gaze upward. He found himself staring into the bright, hopeful eyes of a girl no older than 12, her hair a tangled mess and her clothes a patchwork of worn fabric. She held out a sandwich, her small hand trembling slightly. "I saved this for you. I thought you might be hungry." Ethan blinked in surprise, momentarily taken aback by her gesture. He hadn't expected kindness from anyone, let alone a child living on the streets. He hesitated, glancing at the sandwich, then back at her. "That's very generous of you, but I couldn't possibly—" "Please," Luna insisted, her voice earnest and unwavering. "I've got more. I just don't want you to be sad. Sometimes food makes things a little better." She smiled, and there was a sincerity in her expression that tugged at Ethan's heart. He took a deep breath, feeling the lump in his throat. "Thank you," he finally replied, accepting the sandwich. The moment their hands touched, a rush of warmth coursed through him, and he felt an unfamiliar flicker of hope. "What's your name?" "I'm Luna," she said, her face lighting up as if her name were a secret treasure. "What about you?" "Ethan." He took a bite of the sandwich, and despite its simplicity, it tasted surprisingly good. It reminded him of the days when food was a comfort rather than a necessity. "How did you end up here, Luna? It's not safe for a kid like you." Luna shrugged, her expression turning a little somber. "I don't really have a home. I just move around. Sometimes I help people and they give me food. Other times I find it in the trash. It's not so bad if you get used to it." Ethan frowned, his heart aching for her. "You shouldn't have to live like this. There are places that can help you. I know, she said, her voice steady. But I'm okay. I have my dreams. A light danced in her eyes as she spoke. I want to be a doctor someday. I want to help people like you. Me? Ethan chuckled softly, genuinely touched. What makes you think I need help? Because you look sad, she replied matter-of-factly, her gaze unwavering. And I can tell when someone is hurting. It's like a shadow that follows them around. Ethan felt a lump in his throat again, a profound sense of vulnerability washing over him. He hadn't spoken about his pain in months, and here was this little girl, unearthing emotions he had buried deep within. You're pretty wise for someone your age, he said, trying to lighten the mood. I've learned a lot, she said, her smile returning, like how to find the best food and how to avoid the mean people, and how to be brave, even when I'm scared. She paused, looking at him intently. What about you? What do you want? Ethan hesitated, caught off guard by the question. He had spent so long burying his desires under the weight of his grief that he could hardly remember what they were. I used to want to build a better world, he admitted, to create opportunities for people, but everything feels so pointless now. Why? Luna asked, tilting her head. Just because things are hard doesn't mean you should stop trying. You can still help people, you know. Her words pierced through his darkness, and he found himself nodding slowly. You're right. It just feels overwhelming sometimes. Maybe you just need a friend, she offered, her eyes twinkling. I could be your friend. Friends can help each other feel better. Ethan felt an unexpected warmth spreading through him at her suggestion. I'd like that, he said, a genuine smile breaking through the heaviness that had enveloped him for so long. What do friends do? Friends share food, she declared, giggling, her laughter light and infectious. And they talk about their dreams, and they look out for each other. I think I could use that, he replied, feeling lighter than he had in months. What else do you dream about, Luna? I want to help sick people, she continued, her voice filled with passion. I want to make them feel better, and I want to have a garden with flowers of all colors. I want to learn how to grow food so I can help people who are hungry. Ethan listened intently, captivated by her aspirations. Those are wonderful dreams. I can see you making a difference one day. Can you? She asked, her eyes widening in surprise. Do you really think I can be a doctor? Absolutely, he replied earnestly. You have the heart for it. And heart is what matters the most. Luna beamed at him, her face lit up with joy. Thank you, Ethan. That means a lot coming from you. As they continued to talk, Ethan felt the barriers he had built around himself slowly crumbling. He hadn't realized how much he had longed for genuine connection until this moment with Luna. Her innocence and resilience were infectious, reminding him of the beauty that still existed in the world, even amidst his pain. Eventually, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the park. Luna glanced at the sky and sighed. I should probably get going. It's getting late and I need to find a safe place to sleep. Wait, Ethan said, a pang of concern tightening his chest. Can I walk you? I don't want you to be out here alone. She looked at him, her expression softening. You don't have to. I can manage. I want to, he insisted, feeling a protective instinct rise within him. It's the least I can do after you shared your food with me. Okay, she relented, a smile breaking through. But just so you know, I can take care of myself. I've had to. As they walked side by side, Ethan marveled at how such a small act of kindness had transformed his day. The weight on his shoulders felt a little lighter, and as he glanced at Luna, he realized that he had found a spark of hope amidst the shadows that had clouded his life for far too long. Thank you for talking to me, Luna, he said softly as they approached a corner where she often spent the night. You've made me remember things I thought I'd forgotten. You're welcome, Ethan, she replied, her voice sincere. Just promise me you won't be sad for too long. You've got a lot to share with the world. Ethan nodded, a newfound determination swelling within him. I promise. And you keep dreaming big, okay? I will, she exclaimed, her eyes shining. And if you ever need a friend, I'll be right here. As they parted ways, Ethan felt the warmth of her words wrapping around him like a gentle embrace. He watched as Luna disappeared into the shadows, her small figure disappearing into the night. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, a belief that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. Luna woke to the familiar sounds of the city, the distant honks of cars, the chatter of people rushing by, and the gentle rustling of leaves in the nearby park. Her makeshift bed was a thin layer of cardboard tucked against the cold brick wall of an alley. She stretched, rubbing the sleep from her eyes, and let out a soft sigh. Today would be like any other day, she thought, but a flicker of hope ignited within her when she remembered Ethan. Since their brief encounter, Luna found herself thinking about him often. The way he had looked, lost and heavy-hearted, stirred something deep within her. She wondered if he had found any solace since they last met. She pondered his sadness, imagining the stories he might carry behind those weary eyes. Did he feel as lost as she often did? Luna shook her head, trying to dispel the thought. It was strange to care so much about someone she barely knew, but something about him felt different, as if they were kindred spirits, both seeking light in a world that often felt dark. She decided to begin her day with a visit to the park, where she had first seen Ethan. Luna gathered a few items she had scavenged: a half-eaten apple, 2 small pieces of bread, and a couple of shiny rocks she thought might be pretty to add to her collection. As she made her way through the busy streets, she smiled at the children playing, the elderly couple feeding pigeons, and the street musicians strumming their guitars. Each scene filled her with a bittersweet joy, a reminder of the life she wanted to embrace one day. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his large, opulent home, surrounded by silence which felt deafening to him. He hadn't realized how much he had isolated himself until that fateful day in the park. The memory of Luna's bright smile lingered in his mind, a beacon of innocence that contrasted sharply with the shadows of his recent past. He had returned to the office, buried himself in work, but nothing could erase the emptiness he felt. The crushing weight of loss and grief was relentless, and he found himself spiraling deeper into solitude. He stood by the window, looking out at the bustling city below, but feeling worlds away. "What do I even do with all this?" he murmured to himself, gesturing at the sprawling landscape of wealth and power that felt so hollow. Just then, his phone buzzed, snapping him back to reality. It was a message from a friend, inviting him to a charity gala. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. Would it even matter if he went? The thought of mingling with people who only spoke of power and prestige made him feel even more isolated. But then he remembered Luna, her warmth, her kindness. She was a reminder that connection existed even in the most unexpected places. "Maybe I should try," he whispered, his resolve beginning to form. "Maybe it's time to step out of this shell." With newfound determination, he decided to visit a local shelter that had been on his mind for weeks. He had passed by it countless times, but had never entered. As he drove through the city, he felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. Could he really connect with people again? Could he find a purpose beyond his wealth? Arriving at the shelter, he was greeted by the cheerful buzz of activity. Volunteers were bustling about, serving meals and chatting with the guests. The air was filled with laughter and the rich aroma of food cooking. It felt alive, a stark contrast to his solitary existence. He took a deep breath, steeling himself as he approached the front desk. "Hi there, how can I help you today?" A young volunteer, a woman with bright blue hair and a warm smile, asked him. "I'd like to volunteer," Ethan replied, his voice a mix of determination and uncertainty. "Great. We can always use an extra hand. I'm Sarah. We're about to serve lunch. Why don't you join us in the kitchen?" Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of purpose wash over him as he followed her inside. The kitchen was bustling with people chopping vegetables, stirring pots, and plating meals. He rolled up his sleeves, eager to contribute. For the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of belonging. As he helped dish out portions, the chatter around him became a comforting backdrop. He exchanged smiles and small talk with the other volunteers, his heart warming with each interaction. "This is really fulfilling," he admitted to Sarah, who was stirring a large pot of soup. "It really is. You never know what a difference you can make until you're here," she replied, her eyes shining. We have so many people who come back just for the community. It's like a family. Ethan nodded, feeling a strange knot of emotions. Could he find a family here too? Just then, a familiar face appeared at the entrance of the shelter. It was Luna. She stood there, wide-eyed and radiant, as if she carried the sun with her. "Luna!" Ethan exclaimed, unable to hide his surprise and delight. "Ethan!" she replied, rushing towards him, her smile lighting up the room. "I didn't know you would be here." "I decided to come and help out," he said, his heart swelling with joy at seeing her again. "What about you? Are you volunteering here?" "Yes, I come to help serve food sometimes. It's nice to see familiar faces," she beamed, glancing around the kitchen. "I love it here. Everyone is so kind." Ethan's heart felt lighter. "I'm glad to see you. You inspired me to come today." Luna's cheeks flushed with happiness. "Really? That's so cool. We should work together." They immediately fell into a rhythm, working side by side, dishing out meals and sharing laughter. With each passing moment, they deepened their connection, their spirits intertwining like vines reaching for the sun. "Do you like helping here?" Ethan asked as they filled plates with steaming food. "Absolutely. I can't wait to see the faces of the people when they get their meals. It makes me feel useful," she replied, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Ethan watched her, fascinated by her genuine passion. "You have such a big heart, Luna. You've made such an impact on my life just by being you." Luna paused, her brow furrowing slightly. "You really think so?" "I do," he said earnestly. "You reminded me that there's more to life than just wealth. There's kindness, connection, all of this." He gestured around the shelter, encompassing the warmth and laughter surrounding them. Luna smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "And you've made me feel like I can dream bigger. Maybe one day I can help people like this too." Ethan's heart ached with emotion as he took in her words. He realized that this bond was more than merely a fleeting connection. It was a lifeline for both of them. Each was healing the other in ways they could not yet fully comprehend. As they continued to serve food, laughter erupted from a nearby table as a group of children played with their food, making up silly stories about their meals. Luna couldn't help but giggle, and Ethan soon joined in, feeling the weight of his loneliness lift with each shared moment. "Hey, do you want to help me with something special later?" Luna asked suddenly, her eyes gleaming with mischief. Ethan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" "Let's make a dessert. I know how to bake cookies and I think everyone would love that," she proposed eagerly. His smile widened. "That's a fantastic idea. Let's do it." With their spirits high, they continued their work, and the day unfolded in a tapestry of laughter, kindness, and unexpected warmth. For both Luna and Ethan, the shelter became a sanctuary, a place where they could be themselves and where their paths could intertwine beautifully, setting the stage for even deeper connections ahead. Ethan had never imagined that mentoring a street child could bring such light back into his life. As the days turned into weeks, he found himself looking forward to their meetings, the way his heart raced when he spotted Luna's familiar figure making its way toward him. She would often arrive with a smile that seemed to chase away the shadows lingering in his mind, and he would be prepared with a lesson, a story, or even just an encouraging word. One sunny afternoon, they met in the small park where they first connected. The air was warm, and the trees were lush with vibrant green leaves. Ethan had prepared a makeshift classroom on a picnic table, complete with notebooks and colored pencils. Luna's eyes sparkled with excitement as she approached him. "Mr. Ethan, what are we learning today?" she asked, her voice bright and full of enthusiasm. Ethan grinned, his heart swelling at her eagerness. "Today we're going to work on some basic math and then dive into creative writing. I thought you might enjoy telling a story." Luna jumped onto the bench of the picnic table, her legs swinging as she settled in. "Math sounds boring, but I love stories. Can I write about fairies?" "Absolutely," Ethan chuckled, handing her a notebook. "You can write about anything you want. But first, let's tackle a few math problems. How about we start with addition? If you have 3 apples and I give you 2 more, how many do you have?" 5, she exclaimed, her face lighting up. "I love apples. Are we going to have a picnic later?" Only if you finish your math first, he replied, winking. The banter felt natural, a rhythm they fell into easily. As they worked through the exercises, Ethan marveled at Luna's ability to grasp concepts quickly. She was a bright child, despite the hardships she had faced. After they finished the math, he encouraged her to let her imagination run wild. "Okay, now tell me about your fairies," he prompted, leaning back against the table, an encouraging smile on his face. Luna's eyes widened as she dove into her story. Once upon a time, in a magical forest, there lived a fairy named Lyra. She had the power to heal animals and she was very kind, but one day she met a sad little bird who had lost its way. Ethan listened intently, captivated by Luna's vivid imagination. She painted pictures with her words, and he could almost see the forest she described. "And what happens next?" he urged when she paused, her brow furrowed in concentration. "She helps the bird find its family, and they become best friends. They go on adventures together, and Lyra learns that kindness can change the world," Luna concluded, her voice animated. "That is beautiful, Luna. You have such a gift for storytelling," Ethan praised, clapping his hands together. "You should keep writing. One day you could become a famous author." "Really?" Luna beamed, her cheeks flushing with pride. "Do you think so?" "I know so," he affirmed, "and I'll be the first one to buy your book." "Promise?" she asked, her eyes wide and earnest. "Promise," he replied, his heart warming at the thought of her future. As they packed up their things, Luna's expression turned serious. "Mr. Ethan, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What's on your mind?" he replied, sensing the weight of her question. "Do you think I'll ever have a home, like a real home?" Her voice trembled slightly, and Ethan felt the familiar ache in his chest. He knew her life on the streets was filled with uncertainty, and he wished he could give her the stability she craved. "You deserve a home, Luna. You deserve a place where you feel safe and loved," Ethan said earnestly. "And I want to help you find that. We'll figure it out together." Luna looked down, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her notebook. "Sometimes I'm scared. What if I never find it?" Ethan reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. "You're not alone anymore. You've got me in your corner, and we'll face whatever comes together. I believe in you, and I won't stop fighting for you." Her eyes met his, filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "Do you really mean that?" "I do," he assured her, squeezing her hand gently before releasing it. "Now, let's head over to the shelter and see if we can help out with dinner. I think they could use a couple of extra hands." Luna's face lit up again, the worry momentarily forgotten. "Can I help cook? I want to make something special." "Of course. Let's see what we can whip up together," he replied, their laughter filling the air as they made their way to the shelter. Upon arriving, the familiar buzz of activity greeted them. Volunteers were bustling about, chopping vegetables and setting up tables. Luna hurried over to the kitchen, her excitement palpable. Ethan followed closely, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. As he watched her interact with the other volunteers, he felt a warmth spreading through him. "Hey, Luna! What are you making today?" one of the volunteers asked, a friendly smile on her face. "Something special," Luna exclaimed, her eyes sparkling, "with Mr. Ethan's help." "Sounds like a plan. What do you need?" the volunteer replied, eager to assist. Ethan stepped in. "We'll need some fresh vegetables and maybe some pasta. Luna has a great recipe in mind." As they cooked, Luna's laughter echoed around the kitchen, and Ethan found himself joining in, feeling lighter than he had in years. The simple act of creating something together brought them closer, a bond strengthened by shared experiences. Later, as they served dinner to the guests, Ethan was struck by the sheer joy that radiated from Luna. She moved through the crowd with grace, her laughter infectious as she joked with the others. He felt proud of her, watching as she built connections with people who understood her struggles. "Mr. Ethan," Luna called out, waving him over to a table. "This is my friend, Sam. He's really funny. You'll love him." Ethan approached, extending his hand to Sam, who was seated with a wide grin. "Nice to meet you, Sam. Luna speaks highly of you." "Nice to meet you too, sir. Luna's the best." "Did you know she can cook gourmet meals?" Sam teased, earning a playful swat from Luna. "Only when I have an expert to guide me," she shot back, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Expert? You mean me? Ethan chuckled, enjoying their banter. I'm just here for moral support. As the evening wore on, Ethan found himself immersed in conversations, each one revealing the struggles and triumphs of those around him. Stories of resilience and hope filled the room, and he realized how much he had missed genuine human connection. He glanced at Luna, who was surrounded by her friends, her laughter ringing out like music. In that moment, Ethan understood that his life was beginning to shift. The walls he had built around himself were slowly crumbling, replaced by warmth and a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. Luna had opened a door to a world he had long closed off, and he was grateful for every moment they shared. "Mr. Ethan," Luna called out, breaking him from his thoughts. "We're going to play a game after dinner. You should join us." "Count me in," he replied, his heart swelling with affection for this brave little girl who had changed his life in ways he never anticipated. As they finished serving and began to clean up, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He looked around the bustling shelter, filled with laughter and camaraderie, and knew that this was just the beginning of something beautiful. Together, he and Luna would navigate the complexities of their lives, forging a path filled with hope and kindness, one step at a time. Luna sat on the worn steps of an old building, her heart racing as she spotted the familiar silhouette of a social worker approaching from a distance. The woman, clad in a formal outfit, carried a clipboard and wore a serious expression that sent chills down Luna's spine. With each step the woman took, memories of the foster homes she had heard about, places she knew were devoid of warmth and comfort, filled her mind. The smell of antiseptic, the coldness of institutional walls, and the absence of the laughter she so longed for surged through her thoughts. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her bright eyes darted around, searching for her friend, the man who had become her beacon of hope. She couldn't let him be taken from her. Not now, when they had just begun to build something beautiful together. As the social worker approached, Luna stood up, her petite frame tense, ready to flee. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, a wild drumbeat of fear and desperation. Just as she was about to turn on her heels and run, a familiar voice broke through her anxiety. "Luna!" Ethan's voice rang out, calm yet urgent. He appeared as if summoned by her thoughts, striding toward her with determination. His eyes, usually filled with warmth, now reflected a sense of urgency that mirrored her own. "Luna, wait!" he called, reaching her just as the social worker arrived, her expression one of confusion and concern. "Ethan, they're here for me," Luna said, her voice shaking. She could feel the tears threatening to spill over, but she held them back, refusing to show weakness in front of the stranger. "I don't want to go." Ethan knelt down to her level, his eyes searching hers. "You don't have to go if you don't want to, Luna. We can figure this out together, just trust me." The social worker cleared her throat, her eyes darting between the two. "Luna, it's important that you understand. We're here to ensure your safety, the conditions in which you're living." "My conditions are fine," Luna interrupted, her frustration bubbling to the surface. "I have Ethan. He's my friend. I'm safe with him." The social worker sighed, her expression softening slightly. "I understand that, but I'm afraid we have protocols to follow. You need a stable home, and I can provide that stable home," Ethan interjected, standing tall, his voice steady and commanding. "I mean it. I'll take her in temporarily. Just give me a chance to prove it." Luna's heart soared at his words, a mix of hope and disbelief flooding her. She had never imagined anyone would advocate for her, let alone someone like Ethan. "You would do that for me?" she asked, her voice trembling with emotion. Ethan nodded earnestly, his gaze unwavering. "Absolutely. You can leave whenever you want, but I promise I'll take care of you. You won't be alone." The social worker hesitated, her eyes narrowing as she calculated the implications of Ethan's offer. "While I appreciate your willingness to help, Mr. Harrison, this is highly unconventional. You must understand, caring for a child is a significant responsibility." "I know it is," Ethan replied, his tone firm yet respectful. "But I can offer her a safe environment. I've been volunteering at the shelter, and I understand the challenges she's facing. I want to help her." Luna watched as the social worker weighed her options, her brow furrowed in thought. The tension in the air was palpable, and Luna could hardly breathe, her heart pounding with anticipation. Finally, the social worker sighed, a reluctant acceptance in her voice. "If this is what you truly want, I can allow it for now. But I will need regular updates, and this arrangement will be temporary until we can find a more permanent solution." Ethan nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "Thank you. I promise you won't regret this." As the social worker scribbled notes on her clipboard, Luna felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. She glanced at Ethan, who smiled back at her, his eyes filled with understanding. That evening, Ethan brought Luna to his spacious apartment, the walls adorned with art and the air filled with the scent of fresh flowers. It felt surreal to her, as if she had stepped into a dream. She had never experienced such luxury, and yet it felt oddly inviting rather than intimidating. "This is amazing," Luna exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder as she took in her surroundings. "Is this really where you live?" Ethan chuckled softly, a warmth in his gaze. "It's just a place, Luna. What matters is the people in it, and I'm glad you're here." They settled into the cozy living room, and Ethan prepared a simple dinner. As they ate, Luna felt a sense of belonging wash over her. They shared stories, laughter, and a bond that grew deeper with each passing moment. "Can we celebrate my birthday?" Luna asked suddenly, her voice tinged with longing. "I've never had a birthday party before." Ethan's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Of course, when is it?" "Actually, it's today," she admitted shyly, her cheeks flushing. "I never mentioned it because, well, it didn't seem like a big deal." Ethan's expression softened. "Luna, every birthday is a big deal. We're going to celebrate it properly. How about a small party right here?" Her eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? You mean it?" "Absolutely. Just you wait." Ethan grinned, his heart swelling with joy at the thought of bringing Luna happiness. He quickly set to work, pulling together decorations he had kept for special occasions and preparing a small cake he had ordered earlier in the day. Luna watched in awe as he transformed the living room into a festive space, complete with colorful streamers and twinkling fairy lights. When everything was ready, Ethan turned to her, a playful glint in his eyes. "Okay, Luna, close your eyes. Shall call you when it's time to come in." Luna giggled, her heart racing as she squeezed her eyes shut tightly. "Okay." After a moment, Ethan called out, "You can open them now." She opened her eyes to a sight that took her breath away. The living room was aglow with lights, and in the center stood a beautiful cake adorned with candles. "Happy birthday, Luna," Ethan exclaimed, his voice filled with warmth. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she took in the scene. "You did all this for me?" she whispered, disbelief mingling with joy. Ethan nodded, a broad smile on his face. "Every bit of it. Now make a wish and blow out the candles." Luna leaned forward, closing her eyes once more. With all her heart, she wished for this moment to last forever, the warmth, the love, the happiness that had been so elusive for most of her life. As she blew out the candles, Ethan cheered, and she felt a thrill of joy course through her. In that moment, she understood that she was no longer just a girl living on the streets. She was a girl with a friend, a safe place, and a future filled with possibilities. They spent the evening laughing, sharing stories, and enjoying the cake. Luna felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. It was more than just a birthday celebration. It was a promise of something new and beautiful, a partnership forged in kindness and hope, a bond that would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. Ethan sat in his sprawling yet starkly decorated living room, the weight of his thoughts pressing down on him like an anchor. The walls, adorned with abstract art and photographs of his past successes, felt suffocating without the warmth of companionship. He glanced at the clock, its hands ticking softly, and felt a yearning that had been growing within him. It was a longing for connection, for the laughter and joy he had once taken for granted. Ever since he had met Luna, a flicker of hope had ignited within him, but now as he faced the reality of her situation, that hope was intertwined with concern. He picked up his phone, hesitating as he did. He had promised Luna he would help her, but what could he really do? The memory of her bright smile and the raw honesty in her eyes lingered in his mind. He thought about her story, how she had been forced to navigate the streets alone, her innocence unbroken despite the harsh realities surrounding her. Yet he had learned from her that there was more to her than just survival. There were dreams, aspirations, and an enigmatic past that hinted at a life far removed from the streets. On the other side of the city, Luna sat on the floor of her makeshift room in Ethan's home, surrounded by a few belongings she had managed to keep. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating her small space and casting a warm glow on her face. She had begun to feel a sense of belonging, a feeling that had eluded her for so long. Yet, in the depths of her heart, a flicker of unease remained. She had shared her life with Ethan, but there were pieces of her past that remained shrouded in mystery, even from herself. As she rifled through a box containing her few cherished possessions, a worn-out teddy bear, a book of fairy tales, and a faded photograph of her family, her thoughts drifted to her parents. They were wealthy and had once held a significant place in society, but their estrangement had left her feeling like a ghost in her own life. Would they even care if they knew where she was? Would they want her back? The questions swirled around in her mind, leaving her feeling more lost than ever. Ethan, determined to understand Luna's past better, decided to pay a visit to the local library. He hoped to uncover some information about her family, to find a bridge that could connect them. As he walked through the aisles, the scent of old books enveloped him, bringing back memories of a time when he sought knowledge not only for business, but for personal growth. He found a quiet corner and began to search through public records and news articles, piecing together fragments of Luna's life. It didn't take long for him to stumble upon a familiar name, her father, a man known for his philanthropic ventures and business acumen. The articles painted a picture of a once revered figure who had fallen from grace, his reputation marred by scandal and personal loss. Ethan's heart raced. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had crossed paths with Luna's father in the past, during business dealings that had once seemed so distant. He realized that this connection was more than mere coincidence. It was a thread woven into the very fabric of their lives. Returning home, Ethan found Luna sitting cross-legged on the floor, her eyes focused on a drawing she was sketching. The innocence in her concentration tugged at his heartstrings. "Hey, Luna," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "Can we talk?" She looked up, her bright eyes meeting his with curiosity. "Sure, Ethan. What's up?" "I was doing some research today," he began, "and I found out something about your family." Luna's expression shifted, a mix of apprehension and intrigue crossing her face. "Your father, he's someone I've worked with before, back when I was starting my business." Her eyes widened slightly. "Really? You know him?" "I do. He was quite successful, but things seem to have taken a turn for the worse for him. I read that he's been struggling and—" Ethan hesitated, gauging Luna's reaction. "And I thought maybe it would be good for you to reconnect with him." Luna's heart raced. The thought of seeing her father again, a man she had longed to understand but feared to confront, brought a swirl of emotions. "But Ethan, what if he doesn't want to see me? What if he doesn't care?" Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You won't know unless you try. Sometimes the people we think have forgotten us are just waiting for the right moment to reach out. You deserve that chance." Luna bit her lip, torn between hope and fear. "What if it all goes wrong? What if he blames me for everything?" "Then we'll deal with it together," Ethan promised, his voice steady. "You're not alone in this anymore. We can figure it out, but you have to let me help you." After a moment of silence, Luna nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll try, but it's scary." "I know," Ethan replied, his eyes softening. "But I believe in you, Luna. You've shown so much strength already. This is just one more step." Days passed, and Ethan took the initiative to reach out to Luna's father. He crafted an email, carefully choosing his words, expressing his concern for Luna and his desire to help facilitate a reunion. With each keystroke, he felt a mix of anxiety and determination. He pressed send with a deep breath, hoping this would lead to some form of reconciliation. A week later, as Luna was drawing again, Ethan's phone buzzed, breaking the silence of the room. He grabbed it, his heart racing as he saw the name on the screen. It was a reply from Luna's father. He quickly opened the message, scanning the words with bated breath. "Dear Ethan, thank you for reaching out. I've been worried about Luna, but felt powerless to find her. I never meant for things to end this way. I would appreciate the chance to talk. Please let me know when and where." The weight that had been pressing down on Ethan's chest dissipated. "Luna!" he called out, excitement lacing his voice. She looked up, her face curious. "What happened?" "I heard back from your dad." He couldn't contain his smile. "He wants to talk. We can set up a meeting." Luna's eyes widened, a mix of hope and trepidation washing over her. "Really? He wants to see me?" "Yes, this is your chance, Luna. We can figure this out together." As they prepared for the meeting, Luna felt a whirlwind of emotions: anxiety, excitement, fear, and hope. When the day arrived, she dressed carefully, choosing her favorite dress, the one that reminded her of happier times. Ethan watched her with admiration, seeing how this moment meant everything to her. When they finally arrived at the cafe where the meeting was set, Luna's heart raced. Ethan held her hand, providing silent support as they waited for her father to arrive. The minutes felt like hours, but when a man walked through the door, Luna knew instantly it was her father. He looked older, wearier, but the familiarity in his features sent a jolt through her. "Luna," he breathed, his voice trembling as he approached. "I've missed you." In that moment, as their eyes locked, the barriers of time and misunderstanding began to dissolve. Luna took a tentative step forward, her voice barely a whisper. "Dad?" With tears glistening in his eyes, he pulled her into a gentle embrace, and for the first time in years, Luna felt the warmth of a father's love envelop her once more. It was a moment of reckoning, of healing, of the undeniable power of kindness that had brought them back together. Ethan stood back, a quiet smile on his face, his heart swelling with pride. He had seen how one act of compassion could ignite change, not just in his life, but in Luna's as well. He knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter for both of them, a chance to rebuild, to reconnect, and to embrace the transformative power of love and forgiveness.